Hello, everybody. Give me five. See if you can hear me properly, and let me get the chat out here so I can read everybody. There we go. And there we are. Hello, everybody. Good to see you all. Who is there? Patricia, Julia, Northern Wolfhound, Regina, Cat Spotter. Hello, Brandy. Good to see you. So today we have Luke Slywalker, talker. And before I'm going to talk about that, I've got tomorrow at 1 p.m. a very important stream, 1 p.m. EST, and it is with Ophelia Kennedy, and she is somebody that has exposed the whole Turkish Pizzagate, which is very complex. She's gonna drop a load of bombs, and so I hope you all can be there. On top of that, Wednesday I will be on Pink Patriots podcast with Whitehead, so that's gonna be fun. And what else is there? Oh yeah. I've got the GoFundMe pinned in the top of the stream because I don't have PayPal due to our crazy EU. So and that's it. So we're here with Luke. Luke. How do you say that in the US? Luke.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. I
Luke.
don't know. Luke. I say
Luke.
words weird, I guess. I say people have made fun of me for the way I say milk and the way I say control. I guess I'm lazy with syllable. I don't know. Someone explained it to me in a way that they knew what words and syllables all meant, and I was blown away, but I was slightly offended.
All right. So who is Luke?
I'm just a guy, self-taught tech guy, modern day MacGyver, we'll say, kind of a modern day Renaissance man. Um, Part of the Da Vinci stuff, obviously. That's kind of how you and I got talking here.
Yes.
Da Vinci
Well,
was like the
actually,
ultimate.
Brooklyn Way here in the in the
Well, yeah.
in the chat. She pimped me out to you.
Thank you very
Well,
much.
not in that way, girls.
Well, no. That'd be a very long distance. Be a different kind of sly talking. So Da Vinci, he's like the ultimate Renaissance man. So like I kind of aspire to be similar like that. He was an inventor, he was an artist, he was a physician in ways. So just all these multi talents that make him
Yes.
this like complete human. So that's interesting to me, and I kind of want to do something similar.
And you're a musician?
Yeah, I dabble a little bit. I play a little guitar, a little bit of bass, a little bit of drums, kind
Or
of
you
hack
make
around.
do you
Oh
make
yeah, yeah,
oh, you make
yes.
music too.
Oh gosh, yeah. Heck yeah, I make music. Yeah.
Right. That's cool. And also for the Great Awakening, for the movement.
Yes, yeah, actually. A couple of my buddies, TikTok, he plays a bunch of my stuff on his channel.
Really?
My buddy Jared from Informative Info, he plays a bunch of my stuff on his channel. Um, there's a couple others. I wish I could think of them off the top of my head now and give them their shine and their props, but those are the only two I can off the top of my head. Sorry.
So
TikTok's opinion and Informative Info.
is it like rap or is it
It's a little bit of everything, I guess. Because I play, it's like a one man band. I play the guitar, then
oh
I'll lay
wow.
down like a bass track, then I'll lay down like a drum track or something, then I'll lay down another guitar piece maybe, and then I'll write some vocals to it, and I'll record those, mix it all together real quick, and then upload it, and then
Nice.
move on to the next thing.
That's so cool. And
Yeah.
so when did you come into this whole movement, like the Q
Oh God.
movement? Or
Um,
how long have you been awake? Let's
yeah.
ask.
Oh, jeez. Since like I guess so long ago. Um, the early story that I always tell my friends and all the people I meet is about my dad. He gave me. I used to have trouble sleeping when I was in like fifth grade. So I'm like 10 years old. I'm not able to sleep very well at night. So my dad says, "Well, why don't you listen to these tapes? Because this is the 90s, and that's tapes were a thing." So he gives me these tapes. It's books on tape, and he says, "Maybe these will bore you to sleep." So okay, cool. I'll try it. And
Oh
they
gosh.
didn't. It was Tony Robbins, and if you know who Tony Robbins is,
Yes,
Anthony
yes.
Robbins. Yeah, big,
What, he
tall,
was
like
there already in the 90s?
yeah, yeah. Because the
Oh,
tapes were from like because I think Tony Robbins was in America back in like the early 90s, maybe even late 80s. But these tapes I know were from at least the early 90s. It was the book Ultimate Power on tape. And it kept me awake because it was so interesting to me at the time. And I remember listening enthralled, just like laying in bed, like, okay, what's the next one? What's the next one? And the tape would click and I'd quickly get up and I'd, go turn it over and then I'd listen to the rest of it. And I listened through like the whole thing, and I remember asking my dad later on, like, "Do you have any more tapes? These are interesting." And he ended up giving me Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and some of these other
your
people
dad
who
was
were.
actually really smart.
My dad is the smartest person that I know personally, and he says that his dad is the smartest person he knew. So
Well,
I'm just like, man, I wish I knew Charlie. I wish I knew that guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh man.
Anyway, yeah. So like, I kind of was, I guess, awake to the idea that you need to think for yourself and you need to kind of research things on your own, or you need to prove all things for yourself. So I'm really big on when I hear something or I see something where people are like, hey, here's how it is, and I look at it and I go, that's a little fishy, let me see if I can recreate that or disprove it. And the our favorite friend thing, I kind of was in there from the beginning because on the 1st of October of that same year there was the Las Vegas shooting,
Yes.
and obviously there was some talk on 4chan and things like that about that. So everyone's on 4chan looking for clues about this and looking for the next thing, because there was talks about voting machines and how
The
Michael
FBI
Chertoff
anon.
and yeah, exactly. Mega
That's where,
Anon and
yeah, I was
yeah,
there. Yeah, Meganon. That's when I
yeah,
came in there too. And
yeah.
oh, so you were there too with the first Q drop, because
Oh
that's what,
God, yeah,
yeah, that's when it happened, right? Because
yeah, yeah.
I wonder sometimes if this whole FBI anon, the Mega anon, if that was like draw people in there.
Oh, maybe. They like, if you look at the way that some of the things were phrased, maybe they're people who work together, maybe not. Um, if you go back a long time, there was always the rumors that these intel agency insiders are
Yeah,
dropping information on these boards. So
exactly.
that had always been an unfounded rumor. But if it was unfounded, why did it continue to be spread? Especially since like it
Yes.
probably would be easy to dispel. Um, but so it continued, and eventually it got to a point where information started looking right. And there was even, if you went back on 4chan, there was someone who posted in, I think it was September of 2017, who had essentially predicted the Las Vegas shooting.
I
You know what I'm
remember
talking
that.
about?
Yeah.
Yeah. And we didn't, people didn't necessarily know about or look at it at the time, but it's always one of those future proves past things where you
Yes.
go back and you go, wait a minute, this is from, if you look at a timestamp, this is from like 4 weeks prior, and they're
Well,
talking
he
about this
actually
guy. Yeah,
warned, like, be
yeah,
careful because this and this may happen, a false flag, whatever. And
yeah.
and boom, it happened.
When he specifically said they have their eye on Las Vegas, he specifically called
Yes.
out Las Vegas. And then someone had pointed out later that there was a guy named John who was some kind of intel agency person who had been found in like a murder suicide or something to that. And it just looked really fishy. And it
Yes.
turned out that guy was connected with the same types of things that this 4chan insider had been talking about back then. So it was just one of those weird coincidences. And then shortly after that, you get the whole like, October 28th, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And we go
Yeah.
from there.
All right, so that's cool that you were there also, because well, I don't know many people that actually started out that way, because or either they came in a little bit later or they didn't start on the chance but rather through Twitter or
YouTube or, yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
So you were on the chance like constantly, like I was like
I
the
wouldn't, not constantly by any means, but
no.
yeah, but so back in the day, long, long time ago, before poll on 4chan was poll, it was a board that was called B. And there was what you would call the bros, the /B/ROS bros. So those were the people that eventually became the poll board or the politically incorrect
Oh,
board. This is the same board B where basically Anonymous had formed back in the day.
oh, I
Or
didn't know
not,
that.
yeah, or not, well, and I'm going to say formed with air quotes because someone's going to be like, well, actually, they formed when, but it generalized
Yeah.
B on 4chan. That's kind of where it all started for them. So, anyway, I had been kind of dabbling back then, and I would go in there, and because I had heard about the October thing, October 1st, I
Yeah.
was like, oh, I better start browsing the boards a little more and seeing. And then, hey, check this post out. Hey, check that post out. So someone, I don't remember who had sent me the post. Bam, I'm looking at it. Okay, this is weird. You don't think much of it because it's, because it is what it is. It's a post of someone saying something. But then it just got a bunch of shills, and we're like, well, that's kind of weird. And then obviously it tumbled and tumbled, and then became what it is now.
Right. Yeah. Oh, wow. So, and then what, because you know how we all have a role to play. And so what was your role in this case? What did you take on?
um, so go with like the MacGyver thing again. Originally, I think I got, or the reason anyone knows maybe who I am is from steganography stuff, where um, there was a there was an I don't want to say the wrong names and words. I'm trying to be cautious. Our friend on the boards had posted a reply to another anon who basically mentioned steganography, because there was a discussion going on. If you go back and you look at the 4chan posts from that time on that bread, they're all talking about steganography and how things might be hidden somehow. There might be communications, there might be blah, blah, blah. And then there's a reply from our friend that says that so much is passed across, or more is passed across pole than you'd ever imagine, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Data exchange, and then links PixelNaut. And PixelNaut is a steganography program. It takes,
What is
yeah, steganography. Steganography. It is,
steganography?
yes, it means hidden writing. And it literally is just the act of disguising something in plain sight.
Right.
So the first ever time this was used was long, long ago, ancient time. There was a war between, I think, like the Romans and like or Troy or something.
Yeah.
And one guy was like, hey, we got to send a secret message, but if we write it down and it gets stolen, or this, that, or the other, how do we protect it? So he shaved one of his slaves' heads as a messenger. He tattooed something on the skull, and he waited for the hair to grow back. And then
Whoa.
once the hair grew back, yeah, he sent the guy along. If he were to be captured, what would they do? They would look, they wouldn't see anything. Are they going to shave his head? No, of course. I mean, that's not something they would necessarily do. So the message would still be safe as long as the slave obviously didn't say anything, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the weak link of the chain. But with that said, so going slightly less further back, the Revolutionary War, the British side and the American side, they both use steganography also to send messages. One, even in the World War II, the Germans did this also. In fact, there was a telegram sent by, if I remember correctly, I think it's the Germans, a telegram sent. And the first letter of every word in the telegram would make up a sentence, a new message, basically. So it's this big long message, but you take the first word and first letter in every word, and
They
now
did
you
that
have,
also with books. So they,
yes, it's exactly,
yeah.
yes, it's a book code. Yeah.
Wasn't that also in the Da Vinci Code in the movie?
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
And
yes.
also
So
that
go ahead.
movie Enigma, wasn't it, with where they also in the war and they had this
The
decoding.
Enigma machine. Yeah, the
Yes,
Enigma machine.
yes.
Yes. So all those are like different ciphers for, basically encoding messages. The way steganography works is a little bit different. If you get a message, you see basically some like garbled data coming across from your enemy, you're like, this must be important. They're trying to encrypt it and hide it from me. It must contain valuable information. I'm going
Yeah.
to spend a lot of work trying to understand what this is. I'm going to crack this code.
Right.
So they might crack it. They're smart people, right?
Yeah.
But on the flip side, if they never realize that there's a code to crack, then your messages go undetected. So if you send them buried within another message, awesome, cool, they don't know. Okay, so let's bring it back to the boards.
Yeah.
PixelNaut is an image or is an application for Android phones. Pixelnaut takes an image, any image that you want. You can take a picture, you can download a picture, doesn't matter. And then you can embed a text message into that picture, but this text doesn't show anywhere. You can look at the image, it doesn't look any different, looks the exact same. You compare it one to the other, they look the exact same.
Exactly.
But inside, slight alterations have happened to the bits and bytes of the file. And
Because
then,
I did see it. So I know on the boards, obviously.
yeah,
So
yeah.
they get the file name. If I'm no, they get the picture itself, and then they just like you would look at what is the date of the picture and all that, right?
Oh, okay, kind of, yeah. So that's called EXIF data, and
Yeah.
that's something a little bit different. Even EXIF data is kind of like what we're talking about because that's information hidden in the picture that you don't see, but that information is known as open source. People know and expect it to be there.
Okay.
However, you can change it. So right now there's this controversy about these pictures of Donald Trump
Yes.
having, I'm talking about the ones that are
Green
10 minutes
screen.
apart, right?
Yeah.
So I did a video real quick this morning that basically debunks the idea that the 10 minutes apart proves that he wasn't working all day. People are going, these pictures are taken 10 minutes apart. No. When you take a picture with a or with a camera, the picture takes and it's in what's called camera raw. It doesn't take as like a JPEG or whatever like that necessarily, at least not these cameras that the press are using. So when they export it off of the camera, they do what's called processing to it. And that could be as simple as changing the EXIF data. So they're going to put things in there like the subject matter. So you'll be able to see that, that picture says it's about, Donald Trump, blah, 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 working, yada, yada, yada. Well, that info had to get in there somehow. It wasn't
Yes.
put in there before they took the picture. Like they didn't necessarily like write that all in there and then snap the
Right.
picture. And they obviously don't snap a picture, upload the picture to their computer, open it in Photoshop, do their processing and editing, and then export the photo and submit it, and then go back and take another picture, connect their, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They take a bunch of pictures, they then go to their computer, they they dump all of them into Photoshop or Lightroom or whatever it is, and then
Hmm.
they do what's called batch processing. And batch processing is automated processing that puts in information and it just lets them go one by one. So the fact that those images are 10 minutes apart means that one probably happened early in the day and they were
Yes.
processing through them, and then they got to the other one after 10 minutes of processing. So it means that they could be hours and hours apart. They're more likely to be hours apart. I even found them on the AP Images website. I went through the AP Images website to test this and see, hey, is there a series of pictures I can find from the same thing that have a disparity of like 10 minutes? And yeah, I could. And they're pictures that are going to be different times of the day because they were taken earlier or later and they were processed at different times. So
But
that's why the timestamp shows, because you export a new image when they
right.
process it, it then saves a new image that they then upload to the AP website. So
Right.
that's why they're 10 minutes apart. They were exported 10 minutes apart, not that they were snapped with the camera 10 minutes apart.
Yeah, because there were also pictures that clearly had a green screen and stuff like that. And but back to the
Steganography, yeah, sorry.
steganography. So
So, oh, go
yeah,
ahead. I'm sorry, go ahead.
no, so that the part that you look at the data from what time it is made, that is open source. So how
Yeah,
do you get to the message?
yes. You need Pixelnaut to then undo the encryption of the message that's embedded in there. So when I
Right,
use Pixelnaut on my phone, I will load up an image, I'll put a message in there, and then I'll set a password. And then I'll send this image to somebody else and I'll tell them what the password is. And then they'll open the picture in Pixelnaut, put in the password, and then the message will appear on their screen. So
oh,
that way no one ever can see it. Now, you can get emulation programs that basically run Android software on your computer. You can even go to the point of, I wrote a little password cracker that can take a pixel image and a list of passwords in a text file, and it'll try all the passwords on the image. And if it
right,
finds it, it'll say, hey, I think I got one. Looks like it opened it. It won't crack it completely and open the actual file, it'll just tell you that, yes, I'm pretty sure this is the password. And that's a whole long story about that. But
But so then what you're actually saying is that that message comes out of the pixels itself, or the
yes,
combinations of pixels that is made in the picture.
yes, exactly. The
Right,
idea is they basically change the shade of like one of the pixels by one value from
right.
the original. And then they go off another bit and change another thing by one value. And then they go off again. And
So then
then
how
when,
do you find the one pixel that, because
yeah,
I mean, how many pixels are there in a picture?
yeah, the bigger the picture, the bigger the message can be. So you've heard the term, it's like looking for a needle in a haystack.
Haystack, yeah.
Yeah. This is like looking for, my buddy Laz coined this term. He said it's like looking for a needle in a needle stack. You might
Oh,
find a needle, but it might not be the one that you're looking for. So you have to,
exactly.
yeah. So I'm like, oh crap, because I've had some false positive things come out of other things that I've worked on, other puzzles and things with steganography involved, where I'll get things out of my software, will kick me back a file, and it'll say, hey, it looks like I found this this settings file for a MIDI keyboard. And I'm like, oh my God, maybe they embedded something in music. And I go
Yes.
through and then I look at it and I'm like, nah, this might not be it. Maybe this isn't it. And, maybe it was a false positive. But going further, I haven't got to that point with the Q pictures yet. Oh crap, I said it.
Okay, so
Whatever.
you didn't find anything in the queue pictures because maybe the well, first of all you need to find it, then you need a password, or is it that you
So
need
I've found pictures that look like they have embedding in them. They look like that pixel knot's been used, something's embedded. Now I need to figure out the password. There is four or five that I can think of off the top of my head, of the pictures. The most recent one is the picture where the soldier's standing in the back of the plane, the airman, and he has the flag and everything in the sky in the background. That picture apparently has pixel knot embedding in it. Um, I wrote a piece of code. If you go to qagg.news,
yeah,
qag.news, you can go up to the top menu and there's a thing that says display options. If you
right.
look, it says show steganography data. Click that and it'll put something under each picture that says, is pixel knot in it? Yes or no? And if it's applicable or not. If it's a JPEG, it'll check and see if is there pixel knot. If it's a PNG image, it'll skip it because it's not applicable.
Right. But then you went like a few steps further and you went searching for frequencies. As
Yeah, Leo
yeah,
and all them were working on that.
yeah, because I've been talking to Leonidas and he told me about that you were actually helping and assisting with
Yeah,
that.
yeah, a
And
little
so
bit, yeah.
how do you get to that?
So they were looking at a couple different ways, and one of the ways that was looked at like early on back in, and Leo and those guys, they're from like early days back in the back in what I would there was a guy named True Lies that had like a YouTube channel, and that's kind of where everyone would hang out, or on some of the other ones too. But that's kind of where they all remember me. I remember them at least vaguely from that, and we started talking about things like that back then. But then they kept going with that research where if you look at the posts, you know how the writing goes, line by line. Well, if you turn it 90 degrees, in a way, it almost looks like sound frequency bars. And if you look
Oh,
at the early on when it was talking about, make the map where you would take all the posts and you would put them all together in one big graphic. Well, if you lined them all up, you went from top to bottom. No one did it this way. What everyone
oh
did
my
was they made
gosh.
them like line like this, but they needed to do it like in one big stack because
Yes.
then it would have lines like this that are more reminiscent of an actual audio file, a long audio file, for instance. So anyway, I don't think anyone went that far and did it that way. They should have. They still can. It's not that tough to do.
Well,
But
I was blown away when we found chess pieces within Q drop. So
yeah,
for
yeah,
me, I mean, and I thought if they can do that, because I'm not at all for the chess, but when I saw that, I thought there, because he constantly says you have it all, and so with all the people around, like guys like you, and you know, we look at different angles. I'm a fan of puzzles. The more complex the better. Now obviously when you have tools and the knowledge about that sort of puzzle, then I mean, I know how that works. You're going to dig in and you're not going to stop until you find something. So, and everybody has their own favorite puzzles and ways of looking at things. And so I do see how the whole Q team thought of this as, you know, because I mean, I know how I am with puzzles. So I cannot imagine that there are not any other people doing that, right? And so the
Yeah.
all the stuff that we found, I do believe in any form there is something to find in there, and I do think that they have thought of that. We're
Yeah, it's
millions of people digging, so
yeah,
wouldn't there be the one that actually is? And remember, artists. You know how artists, savants, they
yeah,
have
yeah.
this thing, and you only need one to do the right thing, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it only takes one person making a huge discovery to like completely turn the tide or tip the tables. So, for instance, what if, you know, we get one of these Q images and we crack it with pixel knot and we extract something out of there. Maybe it is a whatever, a burner phone number for Adam Schiff.
Yeah.
And now there's no way to dispel that as a rumor or whatever. Number one,
Yeah.
who would know that it's Adam Schiff's burner number unless it's someone connected? Number
Yeah.
two, pixel knot's been talked about already. You know, number three, if it's a picture from earlier on, then that makes it even more impressive because it's old. It's been sitting out there in the open all this time.
Yes.
So so once one of those things is found, then it's like, oh crap, you know, how do we dispel this as, just a LARP or a hoax or a rumor now when, there's all these, coincidences or whatever you want to call them, that keep you leaning in like, oh crap, man, maybe because this is starting to sound plausible or well, it could be
Yes.
this and it doesn't seem that crazy.
Exactly. So, if you like, I heard the frequency, which is super interesting, but then what can you do with it?
So that's a good question. And this is, tinfoil hat, all speculation or whatever.
Oh,
There's
here
been a
we go.
couple.
Boy.
Yeah, I
I
mean
mean,
that's
there
what we're
are
doing,
no
right?
limits, right?
Yeah. So there's been a couple of the above whatever songs or something that have been posted. I think at least two of them. One of them showed a Mobius strip and it had like a goldish background. And it said
Really?
heal. I think it was posted a couple months ago, maybe now, but it was a YouTube video. And it's like meditation music essentially.
Yes, yes. Oh, I
Um,
remember that one. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I can't remember exactly. I just,
Yeah, it was beautiful, by the way. Yeah.
exactly, yeah. So the thing that is there, the shape or whatever, it's called a Mobius strip,
Yes.
and it's something I remember from like geometry at calculus, where it's like this
Yeah.
infinite, like wrapped
Yeah.
in itself, and it
Yes.
just goes on
It makes
forever.
David Escher made the.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I'm a big fan of the of Leonardo da Vinci because I had the book.
Yeah.
Obviously, lost it, but like the old book, really, with all the drawings in it, and then also David Escher, which I happened to find on the street while I was reading about the Puseji Mountain books, where about the inner Earth and how that works and how you get in there, because it's not like plain inner Earth. No, it's a different. Um, plane. And so in order to get in there, I was thinking about it and I thought the only thing I can think of is the Amobus strip. And so then I went outside because I had to throw something in the trash. There is a stack of books. The book on top is David Escher. I open it up right at the Amobus strip and I'm like, holy crap, that's it. And then I continue reading in the books. 3 pages later, what do I see? The same exact Amobus strip. So that's how I learned about that. And
Yeah.
but it's so fascinating because what you say about this video, what do you think why it was exactly posted?
I don't know at that point. I just so in relation to at least the what would the music or the frequency stuff relate
Yeah.
to? Maybe it has something to do with that. So there is, and without even, going to look, because I'd have to verify, when was that video originally uploaded to YouTube and make sure it's at a early enough date that they could have created the thing I'm about to say in time. In music, there is, resonance and dissonance of frequency. You can combine two frequencies that are complementary or harmonic, and you can get like an increase in the power of the sound or the frequency.
Yes.
Or, if you have the two waves going like in sync with each other. But if the two waves are out of sync, the two sounds are, have dissonance or disharmony, then they're gonna stop that. Then they're gonna cancel each other out in a way. So if like one is peaking as the other is troughing, those combine and they make nothing.
Yeah.
So is it maybe, I don't know, again, something to do with combining the two sounds, one that is a video posted with a track of music, and the sounds that are made up from all of the posts combined and created into a waveform of some kind. Is there a way to like combine those two things to cancel something out to get a third song or a like specific tone or frequency? I don't know what
I'm
could be hidden
thinking,
in there. Well, that you can also hide messages in there too with a thing called sonic visualizer.
well,
So,
I'm
so there's just
thinking
ways to hide. Sorry, go ahead.
a different level. So if you look at Q, the whole boards and everything, there are so many levels in the drops, right? So you have people that just really read the sentence and they answer the question. However, we know all the double meanings, so you go a level up, right? And you go search for double meanings, and you go puzzle there. And then there's another level up where you get the chess pieces, that you find. And then you go another level up. So what if the sounds and frequencies actually give information on, let's say, healing, or things that we need to learn for the future as well? So whoever, because this is the interesting thing about Q, everybody can participate in it, and it doesn't matter what level you are, but there are people that are thinking on this level and more at the quantum level, and so they can decode on the quantum level. But then there are people that are the simple and everything in between. So what if, well, obviously it is 10 steps
Yeah,
ahead.
yeah.
You know
No,
what I mean? So
I
so
like that. The idea too that the people have like created all the various, like you said, layers. For instance, layers is something that we've talked
levels of
about. Yeah,
layers. Yeah.
where you need these different pieces or whatever to unlock it, but that's still kind of like even in the Mobius strip thing, like you need all of it to like interact and go in between itself to like make up the whole. All the pieces make up the whole sort of thing.
But also because people are awake at their own level. So somebody that
Yeah,
just woke up, they can read the Q post and they will read it like sec the way it is. And they're like, okay, well, I see a question. So let me see if that I can answer that. Now you have people that are awake way longer and that are also maybe have researched about the quantum physics, and about what I also did, and about I don't know, aliens and UFOs. So what if in there is actually knowledge, that those that are more advanced within their awakening uh, can figure it out, you know
yeah. So that kind of brings me to the Last Supper painting stuff.
Yes. So let me explain that.
Okay,
So
yeah, yeah.
Luke, actually, it was that Luke needed a translation for Italian. So Brooklyn Way sent me to him on Twitter, and I saw that, and I was like, well, no problem. And then I thought, let me check out what he's actually doing. And to my surprise, he is busy with a Leonardo da Vinci painting, which I love because I'm Tesla and
Oh man, you
da
speaking my
Vinci.
language. Yeah.
Yeah. So those two are for me are like, I love everything. I love the drawings when I see it, the
Yes.
complexity and all that of it.
Yes.
So I saw that and I was like, what is he doing? And so I was listening to one of your vids, obviously, what you were doing. So explain away because it's
Yeah.
freaking awesome.
So okay, back in 2007, and we've all seen the Leonardo da Vinci painting, The Last Supper. Jesus is in
Yes.
the center, and then the disciples are on the sides of them. and they're all at the table, and they're all in their different kind of poses and positions. So in 2007, there's an Italian composer and computer technician, which is kind of funny because I'm like a computer technician slash like musician. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yes.
you know, so
You're the
so
other
kind of
way
parallel.
around.
Yeah, except for I'm like 10 years, quite literally like 10 years after him starting to look into this.
And he's
So
also quite famous, isn't he?
yes, and this is why he got famous. So he came up with
Really?
this theory. He goes, hey, I think the hands and the rolls of bread that are sitting on the table, I think these represent notes of music. And no one, I could never find out why, like what gave him that idea to say these are notes in music, and I'm going to use these specific pieces. The closest I read and found was he said, in communion, or in the Last Supper, I should say, in the Last Supper, the bread rolls obviously represent the body of Christ, and
Right,
the hands were used to bless the bread.
right.
Okay. So I went, interesting. And this guy was interviewed on, you know, the History Channel did a thing on him. He had a little segment in one of their, you know, Da Vinci's Secrets Revealed, you know, CNN, Business Insider. This guy's been interviewed all over the world and still is looked at and interviewed.
Yeah,
So
his name is Giovanni Pala.
correct, yes. Yeah, you can say it better than I had said Giovanni, and then someone that
Well,
I
I
know.
speak Italian, so that's
Yeah, exactly. I got ripped apart for saying it like that. They're like, that's not how you pronounce it. I'm like, whoa, whoa.
Giovanni. That's what
Yeah, yeah. This,
Americans say. Giovanni is Giovanni.
yeah, yeah. I literally got lectured for like 5 minutes of like Giovanni, Giovanni. I'm like, okay, 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 okay. So, so I hope I didn't offend him the way I said it
No,
in my videos, because
they
I'm a dumb
know.
American. I'm sorry. But so going on with that, he had come up with this theory, and you know, all credit to him, because I would have never looked at it in this way unless I had seen his thing. So, but in like 2017, 2018, I'm kind of looking at this, and then in 2018 or 2019, I know I had posted something on Twitter, and then after, there's a whole thing about this Epstein thing that I had kind of dug into a while back that kind of got me kind of, you know, a little bit of notoriety. I had even cited some of this Da Vinci stuff in one of those long Twitter threads I did. But
Right.
so I was circling back to this research because my theory was always, well, if it's about the Last Supper, why aren't we looking at the bread, well, the wine glasses, if we're looking at the bread? If the bread is the body of Christ, why aren't we looking at the wine, which is the blood? That's part of
Because
communion, right?
was his theory also based on the bread as the body of Christ, but and used it as such, or did he come from a complete different angle?
No, that's why he said it. He said the bread represented the body of Christ. So he
Okay.
used those as notes. And he
Yes.
said the hands were used to bless the bread. So I'm going to put notes where the hands are in the painting.
Right.
Well, and
But
I
he
thought,
didn't go. Yeah.
correct. Yeah. And he didn't go the steps further, pun intended, to look
Yeah.
at the feet, for instance. If you read through in the Bible, Matthew, or in the beginning, basically, but right before the Last Supper, Jesus does the ceremony where he washes the feet of the disciples. He
Right.
cleanses their feet. Um, I had posted something about this where I've always had this thing, even ever since I heard the story of the washing of the feet as like a child, you know, preteen or whatever, like whatever. I remember like 11 years old, 12 years old, thinking he wasn't just washing their feet probably, because it talked about like essential oils and stuff like that in there. And I know that was common practice. And I believed it was more like a reflexology treatment because your
Yes.
feet are so, you know, there's so much more going on with your feet than you know. Um,
Exactly.
and ancient people, I think, had ancient knowledges. I know that looked like it was an alien that liked you or
No,
something that was
it's a
floating at
moth.
you. Oh,
It's been bugging me all day, and I can't get it. But yeah, go on.
might be someone that knew you in a past life. Don't swing at
Yeah.
it too hard.
Well,
Well, they're dead now, and they're dead again. They're gonna have to see in that third life. Um, so the whole idea was, again, with the painting, I figured that because in the Bible there's a huge, you know, very specific thing about the washing of the feet. The feet in this painting are probably important if we're going to say that the bread and the hands are important. And if again
exactly.
we're saying the bread and the hands are important, the wine glasses have to be important as well, because if the bread's the body, the wine's the blood. So we need to have those. And if you're going to go as far as say that the hands, which bless the bread, are important, then you need to include the plates, which the bread is served on. Because if you think about the hands, really only Jesus' hands are blessing the bread, not all the disciples. So why are we putting dots on hands that aren't actually blessing anything?
Exactly.
However, so I slightly disagree with his premise there. I do think the hands represent notes. I do think that they are important, because there was also some research I read into about Gregorian chants that talk about like the positioning of the hands, like the actual way like the fingers and stuff are, have something to do with the notes, the length of note, the type of transition between notes. So they actually seem to represent some type of indication of music, even.
Right.
So I went further, even. I looked at the tablecloth that Da Vinci has, and there are some lines that are like
Yes.
faintly in there. Yeah, exactly. And it's kind of like showing like how it's been divided up into
Yes.
sections.
I
So I
found that
just,
very interesting because I paint. I've seen quite
yeah,
a lot of painting. I'm in Holland. We have Van Gogh and everybody. Here's another thing. Why would a painter put the feet on in the first place? Have you ever seen a painting where the feet under the table are on? Never. They either paint it from the table up.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the fact that
that it's included.
Leonardo painted it completely with the feet, which usually is not something you would paint at all, it
Yeah,
means well, it has a purpose. Also,
yes,
Leonardo knew what he was painting.
yes,
He is the one that actually put it in there because he was a freaking genius. So
yes,
so he knew it, and this is his codes, right? And
yes,
the feet don't make any sense in a painting ever, because name one painting where you see people on a table where the feet are actually painted. It doesn't
yeah,
make sense. So you're spot on with that because
yeah.
he skipped the feet.
Yeah. Something I haven't tried with this that I think will be fun, because the hands are here, the feet are here, and there is distinctive lines in the tablecloth. I want to try to mirror the bottom half and flip it up toward the top and see if it's going to
Oh,
create any kind of like dyads or two note chords that are interesting between the feet and the hands. And then even trying to, because I like overlaid everything. I literally put dots and everything. And then so I also, one of the interesting things that I had a question about for Giovanni was, how did you come up with the width of your lines for your staff? It just said that he just said, I
right.
just drew 5 lines on there and it worked. I'm like, well, how did you draw 5 lines that worked? I actually went through a process where I said, here is the width of or the height of a bread roll. And I compared that to the height of the lines that were in the tablecloth, and it worked. They were
That's
the
it.
same.
I
Yeah.
would immediately do that because
Yes.
line, why would the line so weird? Because they're
Yeah.
not even
Yeah.
the
Even
horizontal.
vertical. Yeah.
They are not really making sense because it's a
Yeah.
bit off, but the stripe is that it has such a specific measurement.
Yeah.
And I thought it doesn't make sense because you know how cloths are,
Mm-hmm.
when they're woven.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
what if that is just the indication this is how high the bar is?
Yes.
And
And
he didn't do that. He just made random.
he may have, but nowhere could I find anything that talked about how he came up with his width for his staff. So
Oh,
I
because
had
you
to,
haven't talked to him yet.
yeah, he said he was going to email me, and
That's
I'm
why you
just,
needed me.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm just still kind of waiting on him to email me so I can be like, hey, here's Italian for you to translate back to me. And then if you have anything you can think of, add it in here. But I'm still
Yes.
waiting on that. But my whole point was the fact that the width of the lines was the same as the width of the bread rolls. That was like a checksum to me. That was like an
Right.
indication that I'm on the right path. These things make sense. So when I took my lines and I made the first set and then I just copied them up, it worked even better because all the bread rolls landed like dead in between a line or right on a line. So it's either FACE for notes if it's landing in between lines,
Yeah.
or it's, every good bro does flow, EGBD, blah, 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 if it's
But
landing on them.
here's the interesting thing. So he is a musician and does what you do on the side,
Well,
but he doesn't.
he's a composer much, I would say,
Or
higher than me. I'm just a guy that kind of hacks around on some instruments. So I don't want to like like put
Well, yeah,
myself in that same
okay,
category. Yeah,
but
but
skill wise,
yeah,
so
yeah,
he probably doesn't have the skill to look at it creatively, and you
I
know
see what
how
you're saying. Yeah,
so he has this very specific pattern of thinking and skill, and so he skips because for me, what you did to me, it all made sense immediately. I
yeah,
even
yeah,
saw it before I saw you explain it. And
yeah.
so, because I had to look back, right? Because I was wrong about something. And I looked back and I was like, oh, so that would be there. And boom, you said it. And I'm like, you know, and the fact that he didn't see it is probably because he just thinks with his music brain. And so, not how did Da Vinci come up with it? You know, the logical steps that come
Yeah.
from
He's
from
not.
from a painter perspective.
Yeah, he's not thinking also like, well, my assumption at least, he's
Yeah,
thinking more on the long, maybe lines of like a musician or what have you, where I'm thinking along the lines of how would I encode something into the painting? How am I going to
exactly.
do it? So he's just looking, again, my assumption, he's looking and finding things that might have been there, by chance. He's going, oh, this kind of looks like that. Where I'm going, if I'm going to do this, what
Yeah,
can I
or
do?
it
I'm going to
matches
set
the
objects.
notes, or
Yeah,
it matches the note, so then for him
yeah,
it makes sense. Well, for you it's both. So
yeah.
first off, it needs to match the decode, and then
Correct.
you're going to go for the note, right? Because
Yes, that's how I did it.
exactly, and that makes sense because, well, I have to say, he made a video about it. You have to watch it because it's so interesting. Because he also plays it on the piano, and
I'm a terrible piano player.
well, but it was all about the
But
sound, and to me,
correct,
it
yeah.
sounded like something I heard before, either from Bach or Beethoven. And
Yes.
the first time I heard it, I couldn't get it out of my head.
Yeah.
Why is that?
It's very reminiscent. Like I don't it's like nostalgic almost. I don't know how to describe it, but it just sticks in my head and I'm like, "Huh, this is weird." So, one of the cool things about it the theories that I was kind of, rolling with were also in these verses in the Bible, it talks about that after the Last Supper, like after they're all done, it says, and then the disciples sung a hymn before Jesus went out to the Mount of Olives. And that's it. What hymn? You guys talked about, like, you went in depth about washing the feet, you went in depth about the bread and all this other stuff. And then you talk about the last hymn that you're singing is this praise song of something, who knows, for your Savior before you know he's going out to sacrifice himself.
And
That
it's
song
not
might be
even
important.
known.
Yeah, that song might be important. Wouldn't that be a song that you would think would have lived on as something that we would sing in remembrance? Like, to me,
Well, is it?
that's a no-brainer.
Well,
I don't know
yeah.
what, no one knows what it just says in the versions I read, and I looked at the King James version, I looked at the blah blah blah, all the different versions I could find online of the Bible. It just basically said they went out and sung a hymn. That's it. So I can't find the notes. Now there is something like, the Song of Solomon, or there is something else where I can't remember off the top of my head. Someone had reminded me of this when I pointed that part out, though, about there was a song or a note that was sweet to the sound of, Jesus or God's ear. Maybe it's that, something like that.
Because those
Circling.
songs are known, the one from Solomon, for example.
Well, the Song of Solomon, I want to say, is more like a poem, but is it? Is that just what we got? So when you talked about Da Vinci kind of knowing, that's right. Da Vinci had, he had basically, we'll call it the keys to the Vatican, where he could go in the catacombs. He had access to all the secret writings in the ancient history, even ancient history then, all this ancient secret knowledge that wasn't allowed to be let out to the public, all the
Yeah,
heretical things.
exactly.
So then there was the Council of Nicaea. This was a little, before, obviously. Council of Nicaea is really old, but the Council of Nicaea was when the church basically came together and said, hey, we got to come to an agreement on what the Bible is. So we're going to say this book's in there, this book's in there, that one's not, this one is, and this one is, and the rest are all heretical. We don't want them.
Yeah,
So things like the Book of Enoch, not in the Bible, but was
exactly.
originally a sacred book, but it didn't make it when they went to canon for the Council of Nicaea.
Exactly.
Da Vinci would have had access to those things, I believe.
Yeah.
So he might have known what this ancient song was. Maybe that ancient song was listed. Maybe this ancient song was a praise hymn. Maybe it was something we talked about, sound being able to heal. Well, maybe it was okay, wrong words here, but a spell of protection. It was a
Right.
spell of healing. I say the word
Like you
spell, but
have,
a prayer. Yeah.
well, thinking
But I say
about,
spell because of the way we also talk. If you think about what do you do
yeah,
with words, words
yeah.
are sounds that you spell. A spell. Hey, go ahead. You have something to say. I can tell you.
No, no, because like it can be a frequency that
Yes,
actually
exactly.
does something, you know.
Yes, yes,
And
exactly.
whether that is words or sounds, that is so, you know, because I do believe in those times they did have this knowledge, and then Leonardo da Vinci being having access to the Vatican catacomb. So, I mean, seriously, no
Yeah,
brainer to me.
yeah,
Now, how will we find it? Because the fact that he made his paintings that way in order and completely coded, you know, the whole reason they made a film about it is because they want to tell us there is code. They only not tell us where the codes are and what it's about because
yeah.
you know we know, and so the him, and so your thought.
So I feel like, maybe the music that was encoded into the painting could have been this, this magical song or set of tones that is something that is either healing or transcendent. Maybe, again, it helps cleanse your body of negative energy. So again, it prepares you to get ready for the afterlife. You cleanse out all that negativity so that you can move on to, whatever your greater purpose is.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something that, again, it could be anything, but we look at like the Egyptians. We know the Egyptians had used some kind of weird ancient acoustic healing sound technology. Apparently, they've said that
Not only that, I mean, stones are moved with sound.
with
I,
sound, yeah.
I mean, with dowsing, I saw it. The one in England. What is it again? Uh,
Oh yeah, yeah.
Stonehenge.
Stonehenge, yeah.
So there is a whole energy, magnetic field around it, energy field, and the whole it vibrates. Now they found out that you can, and there is, I think, a desert where they have these huge rocks that all move, and
Oh, interesting.
it has something to do with sound. So sound can move a rock as big as a house. So
Yes,
this is why they think the pyramids have been built in that way. Through sound and frequency it can move, and
yeah,
therefore and they can even polish stones,
yes.
hence
The
why you
sound,
have these.
sonic polishing, yeah,
Yeah, so this is why they have these ancient sites where, you know, where they still, you cannot even put a piece of paper in between. Now,
yeah.
so thinking of that,
Well, think about the story in the Bible of the trumpets that brought down the walls of Jericho. That's
yes,
sound, right? Isn't that just a resonant frequency? They were told to like march around there and blow their trumpets. They were creating a resonant frequency to find where the
exactly.
walls would start to tip and then be able to fall over. I mean, you could look at it as magic, but you could also look at it as science too. It's a resonant frequency.
So
So,
then you came with this theory about multiple notes. How are you going to
yeah,
play that? And so that was interesting. Go on.
oh yeah, the multiple notes thing. So if it is a hymn sung by the disciples, well, one voice, one note. So if all the the six parts or whatever that I've found in there, well, that would be one for each, or one for every two disciples, basically. So they're singing this harmony or this song or whatever to create this healing tone or whatever it is. Um, but then I went further because I was like, well, it could be organ music because the organ is like, what church music was written for
Yeah.
back in the day. And this is, a church painting. And so I thought maybe it's an organ, but I don't know if it's an organ. But then I found out Da Vinci he invented instruments. Okay, cool. What did he invent? Turns out he invented a piano. He invented a freaking piano like a few years before he painted The Last Supper. So now I'm
There
going,
you go.
okay, hold
One
on
and one
here.
is two, right?
Yeah, I'm
Because
like,
then you think, okay, he's been there and he probably tried to find out the whole hymn that he's seen. And so now he wants to play it. So what
yeah.
do? You invent a freaking instrument that does whatever you need to play.
If you're going to encode something, are you going to encode it for something else or the thing that you invented? Like, I'm going to make it for the thing that I made because I know exactly how that works. I know exactly how to code it. And then people would be able to kind of figure out, hey, so and so made it, so it must be with this instrument or it must be with this type of encoding.
Here is Mr. Fox says, what does the monks do their low vibe hymns into high vibe hymns? True, because that's another thing, yeah, because the chakras and all that. Same
Gregorian
thing.
chants, yeah. Yeah, the
Yeah,
Gregorian monks is what he's talking about. That's what I was talking about too, as far as the hand positions are based. It looks like on Gregorian chant notation.
okay.
Here's another crazy thing. Around the time of Da Vinci is when the style of notation of notes was changing. We used to have a block or a square form of note long ago,
You said
and
that.
now we have a rounded note form, and that change was happening around that time. I'd have to look back again, but I remember looking at it, and it was again like one of those oddly coincidental timing things. So was he encoding both new age and old age music maybe into this as well, with square
Okay.
options for the blood of Christ and round notes for the bread or the body of Christ? Could have
Why do
been.
they have a different sound?
They're just played in a different way, so they convey a different. Not totally. And again, I'm not like my music theory. I'm not I'm not a scholar by any means. So I'm kind of hacking my way through it as I learn. But the idea was like the shape of the note, much like how modern notation, if it's a round note with a clear center, for instance, it's one type of note. If it has a bar, if it's just dotted, if it's all these things are
Yes.
that notation. Square notation was a different idea of that. It's just a more
Right.
rudimentary form of it. So using the squares, you can even look at the levels of the wine in the glass and
Yeah.
decide, is this a longer note or is it a shorter staccato note, like
Oh, okay,
that
okay.
kind of thing. So you can figure out the way it might be played to, not only the tone that it represents.
Because the way that Giovanni did it, like only the hands and the breads, right? And
Yeah.
then, but when you use the wine glass, when the blood of Christ, then you use the feet because of the washing. Then you use,
Yeah.
so you get multiple notes on one line, right? Or
Yes.
slightly that. So
Correct.
and that means that you then come into a choir mode. Now think about the
Yes.
choirs they have in churches. It's so beautiful. It just goes through your spine, and I think it is the same as what a monk should do, especially when these children sing, right, in choirs. It's like, whoa, that goes through your, I mean, I even get goosebumps
I'm
now
getting
when I,
goosebumps right now.
yeah, when you think about it only. So imagine this, when this whole thing is decoded, what you get as a hymn, because that's where, you know, and so do you think then the hymn was made for the amount of priests and therefore a choir of that many people?
Yeah. So I'm I'm that's kind of where I think it's headed. I don't have anything in stone as far as like, oh, I think it's going to be this. So
No,
I'm going to
because you need to try everything, right?
exactly.
But that's
Yes.
the fun part of it, right? And
Yes.
and
Yeah.
the brainstorming about it, because who knows, somebody all of a sudden said something you're like, holy crap,
That's
never
it.
thought of that,
Yes. Yes. So, and
So
and I wanted to say this too because you had mentioned earlier. It's like, yeah, it seems so simple to go. Well, of course the wine glasses, but it's like I feel we're standing kind of on the shoulders of giants. If you look at it, this guy, Giovanni's done a lot of the work already,
yeah,
and we can basically stand on his shoulders and see even further than he can, and be like,
exactly.
oh, well, that makes so much sense now based on this. But he's still looking at the same level he is because he hasn't had someone else to take over and for him to
Exactly.
stand on yet.
Yeah,
Um,
because input from others makes you all of a
yes,
sudden click an idea.
yes,
And this is
yes,
why it's so important. You need other people when you do research, because they come with things that you never thought of, no matter
yeah,
how simple, because everybody's brain works differently, right?
yes,
And so this
yes,
is why it's so interesting looking at it, because I've been looking at it. I have it on my freaking a desktop now, because I'm like, okay, what else can I find there? Because I'm a puzzler at heart.
yes, yes,
But I don't know anything about music and how that's formed. But at the same time, that doesn't matter, because
yeah.
you see
You can
how
see
that.
relationships. You can see things that, hey, wait a minute, this hand lines right here up with this foot. I wonder if that's supposed to be like that. And then you start kind of drawing lines, and you'll come to your own conclusions.
How
Um,
about, here's a nice one. I remember you saying, because this was brilliant too, and I think you're spot on there. Uh, the painting that you use as an example is not the original from Leonardo da Vinci.
Correct.
Now, I have a question for you there. So first explain why that is.
Um, okay, so the painting that I used is a recreated version by one of his proteges. Okay, it's a guy who, it's not like it was just someone else doing it. It's a guy that was contemporary with him, like living amongst him, learning from him. So this is someone Da Vinci would have been sharing these secrets with.
Yes.
Also, Da Vinci was using an experimental technique that he had come up with that involved, I think, egg yolk and something else to create the colors for the painting. And then he painted it on a wall. So the paint didn't stay. It was chipping and flaking off before he even finished the painting. So of course someone else was going to be, making recreations of this because it was obviously important enough for other people to go, hey, we got to preserve this somehow because Da Vinci's out here trying to experiment with chicken stuff. Like, let's do it in oil or let's do it in
So
whatever. But I
why did
think
he use other material for the colors?
that's a good question too. I don't know about that.
I do.
Oh, okay. I would love to hear it. I've heard
So
something about the way it draws you or whatever, and the face of Jesus is like, it's really weird in his paintings, and it's not
sound.
replicated. Oh, duh. Okay, continue. Yeah, yeah.
So there are people that have this skill that can translate color into sound. They cannot see, they cannot hear music. Oh no, it was this. When they hear music, they see colors.
Yeah, they hear it in color. I've heard of this before. That
Exactly.
actually makes a lot of sense
Now think
because
of that.
color
Why
has a frequency. You're right.
he had pigments to make every color there? Why would he want egg yolk? Because he wants a very specific color. What if Leonardo da Vinci was able to actually
Paint
see
the
music
sound
as
onto, yeah.
colors? And
Yes, I see exactly what you're saying.
so coming back to the students, I mean, if there is still some stuff left over from his original painting, you could take the colors out of that, but the painting is still the painting.
Yeah.
Because, like
Um,
you said, the original painting has been, they can restore it,
yeah.
and but and that would be the original colors. Because, and this is I'm a freak when it comes to restorations and paintings. I would love doing that work because it's so meticulous, and I
Yes.
paint myself. So my logic is, wait a minute, there are all pigments in the world. Why would he experiment with certain colors? So my immediate thought is, again, sound, music, because he sees music in colors.
Yeah. That's a mind-blowing one, that a total thing. So just like you had just said about someone else will say something that sends you on this whole new thing. Like, I would have never thought about that.
Well, and it's
But
years
it makes
ago I
sense. Yeah.
accidentally saw it because I thought I
That's
have
really
that
cool.
in some way or another too. That I see color. I think of colors when when it's not relevant to
Yeah,
colors.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I saw a documentary about how some people interpret sound as colors, and other people, have other of these weird things, and then I thought, well, Leonardo was pretty brilliant and he was probably a savant in some way. So I wouldn't be surprised if he saw colors of
Yeah.
music. And
Yeah.
so I mean, the whole reason that he tried to experiment with color is because he couldn't get that specific color.
Yeah, exactly. Oil wouldn't do it for him probably. So I bet you're 100% right in that he was using an experimental technique to get a very specific pigment. It had to be dead on.
Yeah,
That
it's
is a
about
really cool
brightnesses
concept.
as well. Look at
Yeah.
acrylics. Acrylics are much more brighter and much more
Yeah.
spot on, like color. While oil painting, that is so you
It's
can
kind of washy, wavy, and yeah.
exactly. So I wouldn't be surprised about that. That is
Sorry, I
very
was looking at the chat. Yeah,
so
yeah. I see what you're saying. No, that so that adds a whole new way now that when I start thinking about solving something in Da Vinci's, now I have this other like, call it tool in my tool belt, this other perspective to look from that I can go, wait a minute, I need to check with this lens now. And
Yeah.
that might lead to, some extra or other big discovery or other, way to look at it that gives me a new set of information. So
So
that's
yeah.
I like this. I like this. I'm like giddy about the prospect because I'd honestly put that on the back burner for a little bit, and I've been slowly kind of adding some things to it on a document I have, and then eventually I'm gonna put a bunch of it on a Patreon page that I'm slowly working on, and then I'll start
Right.
advertising, blah blah blah. But that that piece there about the color to the sound is
Oh,
is
Mr.
interesting to me now.
Mr. Fox says something there. Maybe he couldn't see colors, but Leonardo da Vinci was a painter himself. So,
Oh, that get like for instance, Beethoven, wasn't he deaf?
right.
But
And
he composed
I
obviously some
cannot
famous
paint in
stuff.
colors. I can only paint in black and white. Why? Because I can make a realistic painting in black and white. Why? All I think of is shadows, light, dark, light,
Yeah,
dark.
yeah,
As soon as color comes in, I get overwhelmed because
yeah,
there are so many tones of colors. So what Mr. Fox is saying there, if he is colorblind, he would go with the nuances instead of the
yeah,
color
the,
itself. So the
yeah.
color itself doesn't matter. So what if you actually make
So
the
that
painting in black and white?
yes, I was just gonna say if I drop it to like a grayscale, for instance, because there's a
Thank
steganography
you.
method, yeah, of actually looking at the differences between grays, how black or how white a pixel is compared to the pixels around it. You can make it off by one shade, either higher or lower, to hide a piece of data, to hide basically binary information. You can hide a one or a zero that way, hide enough of those ones and zeros. It's a binary string that creates either a phrase, a text, a file, a whatever. So he may have, yeah, done it in a way that is like, so he's encoding it in like color levels. And that's why he had to use an experimental color so he could see maybe the differences enough. That's a really interesting way. It might have been
Well,
lost, but
it seems
yeah,
that Mr. Fox here, he studied all that stuff as well, sound. So he
have
may
him on.
actually be of help there. But
Dr. Fox, that is.
yeah, Dr. Fox. But but you actually took it from the painting of the student. Now, my question was, when did the student paint it? Was it after his death, or was it because that doesn't
It
seem?
was like 1 year after the painting was painted. It was like it was a very, very close amount of time. So again,
That's
it's
what I
not
wanted to
something,
know.
yeah, they were painted within like a few years at most of each other. And it might have even been that the student started it shortly after because of the degradation to the original painting from the choice of using the egg yolk and what have you for color.
So why wouldn't he have painted it then?
That's another good question. I don't know. And maybe it's because he was trying to work on something else at the time.
Maybe he was too old already.
Yeah, and or maybe he was just disappointed that he couldn't do it the way that he wanted to.
Yeah,
So,
that's typical for.
I mean, honestly,
Although,
if you're like a savant genius and you get frustrated, then like if you can't do it in the way that you're used to doing, you're not. You
yeah,
might be amazing at various things, but you might not be very adaptable. You might be
yeah,
very
yeah,
rigid in the things that you do.
true.
You might just be able to do a lot of them, but
Yeah,
not saying that's what it is, but these are all avenues now that I'll get to like tickle my brain on and think about. Um,
very much. But then
yeah,
he used other colors, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
So,
so, what
and
if you
then,
put it in a black and white scale and they actually turned out to be the same
yeah,
anyway?
exactly. And that might have been the other reason that, maybe that student was a specialist in whatever medium they were painting in. And Da Vinci said, hey, here's how I've been able to make this happen with this. You now take this same idea that you mix X% of your thickening agent with X% of your coloring and your pigmenting agent, and that'll provide blah, blah, blah. I
Yeah,
can't do it in oil or I can't do it in whatever medium he had chose, which is the medium that will last longer, but I know how to do it in mine. Can you
Yeah.
take my work and convert it to your version? Maybe that's what the student did. Because there's
Yeah.
nothing to say that the student wasn't talented too.
No,
It's
no,
just,
because or he could have because he used the original colors,
yeah,
which have this tone, right? And
yeah.
so in color, in warmth, or in what depth or whatever,
It's
and
so funny.
so
Music words and color words literally have the same descriptors. When you say tone, like tone of sound or
there you
tone of
go.
color, yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah,
And
vibrance and
so
yeah, sorry.
he knew that the original painting would fade away because of the mediums that he used, and
Yes.
so uh, at
So the
least,
message would be lost. So yeah, he had to find
well,
a way.
yeah,
Well,
so
if the color fades, the message might be lost.
well, he would know that some colors would last, but the whole painting itself, in order to decode the rest, would be there. So
Yeah,
if you use the decoding of the painting, but the color scheme of as a, as a help from the original painting, although not everything is left from it, then maybe there is something to find. And then I would say specific colors he uses in the painting that are, but then that's your puzzle.
yeah, yeah. Well, that'll be for everyone too. Like I said, I'll be one of the people that then someone can stand on my shoulders, hopefully, and make
Well,
a further discovery. It's like one
Mr.
of you people in the
Fox
chat.
has another suggestion. Now put that in the music period, but into every painting that has been painted. That's a good idea.
So
From
I
Da
taught.
Vinci.
Yeah, yeah. So I actually we did this with another person that I've been talking to on the side. A guy who is a classical composer. He's somewhat well known. I'm not going to say a name or anything, but he did this as an experiment. He took another Da Vinci painting and he used my same methodology because I've been going back and forth corresponding over email with a few composers and saying, "Hey, is this right? Is this right?" And
Yeah,
he came back and he gave me and I'll send it. I'll send the song to you that he composed, and it sounds beautiful. It was like, whoa, this
really.
might be something too. So there's and I
So
can't remember
wait.
if it wasn't Salvador Mundi. It was something different, but it was another Jesus or Mary painting.
Oh,
I can't remember off
really?
the top of my head, but it's another Da Vinci one if I remember it
Yeah,
correctly.
there. Yeah. So Fox says, with me being partial colorblind, once I learned the colors, I could tell you the true color, but I seen a different color. Goes with past history. I'm going to be the next person you talk to on the side.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah. Well, you will exchange emails or whatever. You can
My
talk.
DMs are open, man. My DMs are always open. You
Well, there
don't got
you
to follow
go.
me or anything like that. You just send me a message. It gets to me.
Yeah. And if you can put colors to notes, yes. Well, I mean, seriously, this is interesting. You see how many, if you have indeed somebody that has, well, I wouldn't say a handicap because it's creativity, right? If you are
Yeah,
colorblind or partially colorblind, you work with whatever you have. So, like you say, Beethoven or Bach, or no, it was Beethoven, I think,
Beethoven. Yeah,
who was,
it's
but yet
deaf,
he
but
wrote the most brilliant music.
yeah, it's
And
well
so
known.
how did he do that? Well,
He did how he could. So one of the colorblind things, that's an asset. Back in Vietnam, colorblind people were actually preferred to be gunners on the helicopters because the camouflage that the other guys were using wasn't as effective as someone with if they're colorblind. If someone's
really?
can normally see regular colors, camouflage works great. Then it all blends in because your eye kind of
Exactly.
but if you're colorblind, my father had a friend who was a gunner on a whatever a helicopter, and he was colorblind, and that's one of the main reasons that they said, yeah, this is a good spot for you because he was able to see better. And apparently, he claims that's why he is still alive is because he was able to better shoot people. And I guess the gunner position on a helicopter in Vietnam was not a very high livability position. They were often killed because you're right out there in the open and you're the one firing too, so you're kind of a threat. So I want to shoot you first before I shoot anything else. But yeah,
Yeah.
that said,
But I mean, I think this is actually brilliant. I think you soon will get closer to
I hope so.
something that might be giving more answers, because Okay, back to the hymn. Now, what does a hymn entail? Does that entail only voices?
That's a good question. I don't know, I guess, what the definition would be. From my, young years when I was at church, I mean, we all had our hymn books, and then there would be, the organ playing, but then there would be like the piece for you to sing, of course. And I'm trying to remember if they had like two sections for like a soprano or whatever, or a mezzo or what have you, like if they had different parts for it, or if we all just sung the same thing. Because obviously, because I never really, my music theory is not good. I never necessarily was someone who was playing by reading music. I would
Yeah.
hear it, memorize it really quick, essentially, and then play it by ear. So if anything, maybe looking at guitar tab to figure out how to play it. But once I've done it a few times, then it's like, okay, I know how to do it, and the
But
sound is what does it for me.
that is where Giovanni comes in, right?
Yes.
So he would actually have a better view on combining. If you say you find tones in colors, yeah, the
Yeah.
music and all that, he would be actually able to compose something and what makes sense for him. And so
Yes.
if
And
the
he could
hymn,
figure musically too what made sense. Because I might say, hey, I think it's this note and this note. And he goes, no, because that wouldn't be in the proper scale that you're trying to play in. He would be able to
exactly,
tell me those things.
yeah.
Um, Spoiler alert, the thing that I played, everything's in the scale and it works. But yeah, but point being, if we keep looking at stuff, we might find that, hey, this shouldn't work, but this one does. But like I said, everything's worked so far in the Da Vinci Last Supper painting. I haven't moved on to the other ones that, like I said, one of my contacts is decoded. He said, well, here, if by using your method, I put notes here, here, and here, and here's the song that it came out to. I made it a choral piece because blah blah blah, and I listened because hymn, choral, blah blah blah. So it's like, again, he's composed it, so he plays it on his whatever keyboard, but it sounds like a choir, humming or whatever, or ahing these notes.
Exactly.
Yeah,
So
but in
so did they have like instruments at the time?
yeah, and not many necessarily, but or well, I shouldn't say not many. Um, the organ, like the pipe organ, big pipe organ, that thing was invented like long, long ago. Might have been, it was invented before 1300, and Da Vinci's in like the 1500s.
No, I mean at the time from Jesus, when
Oh,
the
gotcha.
supper,
Yeah, yeah. See, that's a
because
good question.
talking about the hymn, right?
Yes.
And
Okay, I see where you're going with this. Yeah. So number one, yeah, 100% on the voice, because like that's the first and easiest instrument is the human voice.
yeah,
So I would assume that the thing was written for vocal or for a choir, like you're saying.
yeah,
And then the only other reason that I would lean toward, hey, maybe we need a piano, is simply because Da Vinci had invented he calls it like something violista, or I can't remember. It's a piano
but
basically, but
maybe he did that because
he couldn't
uh
get six people together to sing for him or something. Yeah,
exactly,
yeah. He had to be able to
exactly,
play part of it and then
and then
sing another part to make sure they went in harmony. Yeah, that's
but
actually a good
even,
point.
yeah, but even then, if you think about it, um uh, so say that the colors are also tones, right, and
Yeah,
sounds, and so and then all the notes from everything that's in the painting, you get quite a complex
yeah. You got a
harmony.
lot of stuff happening, right?
Exactly, and that makes sense because listen to also the Buddhist monks when they start doing a chant, right? And they
Yeah.
do it all together, and they go on, and at a certain point you get this harmony, and you can only exactly so you can only reach that with a certain um, amount
Certain
of
amount
people.
of exactly. You need multiple instruments to create that resonant tone and for it to build up. I got what you're saying. Yeah,
So would you say that the prophets are they
yeah, yeah.
called, right? So
Apostles. Yeah,
apostles, they were in 12.
correct.
Would that be sufficient to create, and wouldn't you count Jesus in that case?
Yeah, so that's the one I'm wondering about. If it was, and again, I don't know enough about church music to say that, oh, this is it or this isn't it. So this is just like a, let's throw it out there. Um, Consider Jesus the maestro, the conductor. He's the one that's keeping them together and directing them.
Yeah,
And then what I found represented six sets of notes. If there's 12 apostles, then my belief or whatever is you have 2 tones or 2 voices per note. So you have one person, you know, they're singing their A, and the next person singing their A, and then they're
Right.
doing their whole thing. Because that way you get a huge, very full choir.
Exactly. Now, with the notes that you found so far, feet, hands, bread, wine,
Yeah.
um, would that be sufficient for 12?
Yes. Yeah, because I found 4 in addition to the 2 that Giovanni had found. He found bread and hands, and I
Yes.
did feet, wine, plates, and then what was the other one?
I would.
Feet,
Why the
wine,
plates?
plates. Oh, because the bread is served on the plates, and if the hands bless the bread, then the plates have to be as important as the hands because the bread's on the plates essentially.
What if the plates in the hands? Well, I wouldn't
Yeah,
say.
and that's what I'm saying too. What if the hands and the plates don't mean anything? Because I could see that also. I'm applying, I guess, like a logic to it that says if A then B, and if not B then not A. So if he's going to posit the theory that the bread and the hands are important, or the hands are important because they blessed the bread being the anchor of what's important, the bread, and the
Yeah.
hands did something to it. Well, the plate does something for the bread as well. The bread is used to be served on the plates. We don't eat the bread off the table. You eat it off of this silver, beautiful plate that's on there. Otherwise, why put the plate in the painting? Maybe the
Well,
plates
because
weren't.
they're eating.
Well,
Well,
that's my point. But so here's
but
the
it's
thing:
just bread, so you
it's
wouldn't
just
even
bread.
think.
Yeah, don't you eat
And
it with your hands? So again, the plates I think are very intentional in the painting, and again,
true. You
I
know
don't
why?
think because they
Here's
put
the
them
thing.
there. You know what I
I
mean? It's
lived in
like they don't have to
Italy.
be there.
In
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Italy, you never eat the
Nope.
bread or the plate. You
Correct.
always,
Yeah.
yeah, always
Tear it
like
up
that.
and eat it. Yeah. So, and I assume in communion, when I take communion, when I've taken communion before, we don't have plates. You get a piece of bread broken off, you get, dipped in wine, you eat it.
True.
So the reason why I thought the plates were important was, and again, I don't ever see necessarily priest isn't blessing bread every single time or what have you, or reverend or whatever. But I felt that if he's going to put the plates into the painting, it's intentional. He had the
Yeah.
choice to paint them or not. It would have been a lot easier to continue with the same color and paint it straight across of the tablecloth instead
Yes.
of painstakingly putting plates in specific places. And the other part was it matched up a lot with the bread. So it made me feel like, hey, these are
Yes.
harmonious notes.
Right. So, hi, Tron and Chris are in here, your buddies. And I saw Whitehead in there. And Chris is asking, please ask him if he has listened to the Gregorian chants, I
Um,
guess. Chants?
any in particular, but yes, I have listened to Gregorian chants. So that's kind of that was the original theory. Again, that they're all kind of basing it off of this stuff. Looks like it might be based on Gregorian chants, and then again, Giovanni Paula he just played it with a piano. I think because he's a pianist, he's a composer. Um, I think that you definitely need a choir of voices. That's the way I lean. Again, 6 notes that are in there total that we have.
Yeah.
I think the 6th one was the eyes. I even put dots on all the eyes, and it turned
Mhm.
out the eyes actually lined up into in between 2 lines or right on a line of the staff. So
So,
that felt specific.
what if, because, I'm start puzzling too. So, if we use the colors and the notes, would that be also sufficient to have 12 apostles sing with that many notes? And
Yeah,
also,
yeah.
you were talking about the note that doesn't resonate, but there are people that can sing 2 notes in one. And
Yeah.
I happened to watch that too. I don't know how I got up with that, but and I was like, that is very special. And
Yes.
yeah, so I listened to that and like, what if Jesus is the one that does that?
What if he can sing more than 2 notes at once? Even what if he's
Well,
more
that
special than, because they talk about the Trinity, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, or they talk about he's human, and so I like that idea too. That's interesting. Um, one of the let's see, with the multiple notes thing. So like most people can only sing monophonic. They can sing one sound or one tone at a time. Now, there is Gregorian monks who have developed, I guess, this ability to create a resonance where they're able to create a dual tone. I don't
Yes.
think that they can necessarily choose to sing like, hey, I'm going to sing A and B flat. No, I think they have like a set that they can do. And I think that it's in harmonics. So I think they can sing like a root and a fifth, or they can sing like a root
Right.
in an octave above or below that sound, if that makes sense. I don't
Yes.
think that they can just choose like, I'm gonna sing A and C together, and next I'm gonna do F and B, and then I don't
Yeah.
think that they can just play their vocal cords like a polyphonic instrument. I think that
But now comes the nice thing, because if you're gonna translate that to um, a frequency,
yeah,
you know, and you're gonna say that you have a few sounds that you have, you know, gathered together in combined with the colors, translated in sound. Then you have the feet and the notes that you have translated, obviously in sound. Now, once you do two notes, whatever is possible, I don't know about that, and you create a frequency that actually does something, as in, you know, and measure the frequency of the sound combined together like a song, right? That you have
yeah,
the 432 hertz. Now,
yeah,
because if this whole hymn has some kind of healing property, then I would think once you have different kind of melodies, whatever you found, and you measure the frequency, maybe you get to something that
yes.
might actually translate to, you know.
Yeah, I like that idea too. As far as going back to like the healing tones, the 428 to 432. Um, the sound to color thing that we were talking about. It's called I don't know how to say this. Chromathesia,
You need somebody that can do that.
Chromathesia. Yeah, I was trying to find out
If you
if
only
I
can
can.
find one person, you can
Well,
actually already
I'll find
ask.
software. I'm sure there's software that does it because I'm looking at colors right now, and it actually is trying to show the spectrum. Apparently, that people are there might be some kind of consensus about it,
No,
but
because you
apparent.
what you want to know is, from a human perspective, is it that everybody sees the same colors, or does somebody see certain colors like that? And so then you want to figure out, what did Leonardo da Vinci, what note does correspond with that color that he, you know? So somebody that has this thingy, would they all sing the same color with the same notes? Because that would make sense to me. Because
Yeah,
if you think about how you put like a frequency, and you have the send right on a drum, and you have the and how the, you know, how it makes the mandala, whatever, with the
yeah. Well, it
sound.
sounds different, and yeah.
Yeah, so logically to me would be that everybody that suffers that sees the same color.
Yes. So, and that's what I think because I'm looking at something right now, and it seems to say that there must be some kind of consensus where like lower tone sounds are going to be like darker blue, and sounds around the 1K ish. I'm trying to look at their spectrum. Might be like in the reds and pinks, and then sounds that are like super higher frequency get into like the pastel greens and blues almost. I don't know if that's true or not
So
for
would
everybody, but I'm looking at an
a
article on it.
colorblind person be able to see still colors, still translate music into colors?
I don't know. That's interesting. That's definitely something to ask, especially if Mr. Fox has some input. That's a guy that you should probably have on an interview, by the
Yeah,
way, because I'd be interested to watch that.
he says you two are the ones I like. Well, you know, this is what
We like you.
puzzling.
Let's throw a
This
third
is what
person in here.
this is what puzzling is all about, right?
Yeah,
It's about having these different angles. And if it wasn't for the one time that I encountered it, and I was so curious about it, and I was like, I want to know more, I wouldn't have been able to actually tell you about it. Now, same with the two tones thing
yeah,
that
yeah.
people do, and I found that so weird. And then Well, it turns out, what do you know? They can actually use that. Monks actually can use that for healing as well. So,
Yes.
I mean, anything is
Have
possible.
Have you heard that a cat's purr is healing to them?
I have two
That
cats. And
Yes, I got a cat too. Yeah.
okay, so I use them. Well, what does a cat do when you're sick?
It comes in, it like comes, cuddles up with you and sits there and purrs on you. It's trying to heal you, I think.
Exactly. When I had a breast operation and the whole freaking week I was out of the hospital, my cat was right in the middle of it. When I
Oh,
have
crazy.
migraine, my cat is close to my head.
You
The
get
cat,
migraines too? Okay. I get migraines.
yeah, redhead thingy. So
Okay, yeah, I guess so.
the cats know where you have either your pain or whatever, and they use different vibrations in their purring in order to heal you. I've always known this, obviously. That's why I'm a cat person, because their vibration of that purring is so healing.
That's why the Egyptians had such high reverence for cats, because
Exactly.
I'm not saying they're basing their healing or their society necessarily after them, but they're essentially using that same idea that the cat uses this resonant frequency to basically counteract anything negative in it. The
Yeah,
negative frequencies, like we talked about, how if you can, make
yeah,
the peaks and troughs line up or disalign, you can either
yeah.
heal or hurt. Yeah, so it's just one of those weird things that's like, ooh, maybe there's
Well,
something in here to that.
yeah, I think, well, this is why it's so interesting that you encounter, but many people don't know these things, about animals as well. Same with dolphins. They have these same frequency sounds, right?
Yeah,
This is
yeah,
why they use them as war machines, and
yeah,
with sonar, and so, I wouldn't be surprised at those times. Well, obviously Jesus knew all that stuff, but then is the question, if there's the hymn, what was the purpose of the hymn?
yeah. That's the other one. I'm wondering if it's a purification ritual, maybe for Jesus. He
You know what I was
provided.
thinking? This is interesting. Well, a bit out there, right? But who cares? Remember that he was buried in that,
Yeah,
uh,
in the tomb catacomb or whatever.
yeah, and there was this huge rock in front of it. Now,
Oh, I know where you're going with this. Yes.
exactly. Now, after 3 days, the rock all of a sudden is moved. Now, how do you move a rock? With frequency
What's
sound.
Yes,
So what
yes.
if that was because they knew already he was going to be rising, but then who moves the stone? If you need more people and more voices in order to move the stone, I think that might be the hymn.
Yeah, that's an interesting concept, because maybe even, and again, we're only getting the version of the story that we were allowed to get. Maybe, again, tinfoil hat, based on what you said, maybe Jesus was teaching the disciples their parts of this hymn. And he said, hey, when our forces combine like Voltron, you'll be able to move mountains. Hey, let's start by moving this rock off my tomb in 3 days.
Exactly.
Yeah,
That
that would
is
be an interesting way to see it. I
Well,
like that.
that was my first thought, because I
Yeah.
thought, what would be the purpose? Because you mentioned about the healing, and immediately I thought, well, okay, so why would he teach them that? Okay, it could be for healing, but and it-
Exactly. It doesn't make sense for healing, because obviously he dies, and then some of the other disciples are crucified, and we don't hear that they lived on forever. So yeah,
so
healing
if
was
he
it
knew,
always it didn't work right. So I like what you're saying.
yeah, because if he already knew that he was going to rise, then how does he get out if with his one voice he cannot move the stone? So he will
That's
need them
cool.
all in order to move the big stone.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, I like that. That's a really cool concept. See, and that's again, without talking to you here, I would have still been on this. Well, I got to look at it this way. I got to look at it that way. But now I can go, hey, I'm going to be looking for these notes to also contain resonant frequencies with each other that are going to help to see if they create some kind of like extra powerful thing when they're all combined. Before, I wouldn't have looked at that angle. I would have just looked at them and been like, oh, this is kind of musical, or it's not that musical. I'm not sure if it should be or not. But now I go,
exactly.
is it powerful? Is it extra powerful? ooh, that must be a clue. There must be a reason that it's combining like this. So
And also, if we found the hymn, we can try and move a stone.
yes, exact for real. I literally have. I'm like looking over the top of my laptop. I have recording equipment. I have music equipment that like I can legit try it out. Like if we need to. Like I have amps. I got all the things I need. I just need to figure out what notes. I guess what resonant frequency. That leads me to this because you'll love this if you've never heard of it. There's a guy named Ed Lee Scalen, I think is how you pronounce it. He was in Florida. There's a place in Florida called Coral Castle, and
Uh-huh.
Coral Castle is it's megaliths. It's these huge pieces of coral that this tiny little guy named Ed moved, and he's like 5'2" or something, 120 pounds, just this really frail small guy. But he had this lady that he absolutely loved, and he said that he used the secrets of the Egyptians to build her this miraculous garden of this huge beautiful set of structures, impossible for a person to do. Would have needed cranes. He had built this. I want to say it was back in the 1950s, so it's fairly recent. But he had people deliver this huge load, like this load of all this stuff, and he told the driver, he said, "Hey, I need you to go over here and not look at this for 15 minutes." And the guy's like, "What?" And the guy's like, "All right, fine." Ed unloaded the truck somehow of all of these heavy things. There was no way he should have been able to do it in under 15 minutes. And then he obviously built this whole Coral Castle complex
Exactly.
himself as well. Yeah.
This
And
is
supposedly did it with sound and frequency.
exactly because this is also how Stonehenge was done, and
Yeah.
dowsers know exactly.
Yes.
And around the whole structure that the person they make, there is still that frequency
Yeah.
and
The energy.
vibration. So with the dowsing, you can actually measure it. And this is how, and I wish I knew where I found it because he tells a lot about what frequencies those supposed to be. I want to say that Tinette Booth, thank you for your super chat. She says tones are also correlate to our DNA. They can make songs from it. We could be looking at the sound DNA hymn sequence of Jesus, the Holy
Yes.
Grail.
Yeah.
Holy
That could be
crap.
literally that could be the bloodline. Like this, the bloodline is actually a line of song or a line of music frequency. That's interesting too.
Brilliant. That
Nice
is
job. Nice
another.
job, Matt.
Yeah, that is brilliant because indeed, I just learned that recently how now our DNA has been upgraded, and but our and Juan 07 was talking like 1.5 hour about it, about how our DNA have tone forks in
Oh,
it.
okay.
And
Yeah, yeah,
so
yeah.
it was at Linda Paris's channel, and he explains for a long time about it. So that might be interesting to
It'd be cool
watch.
to watch. Yeah, I
Yeah,
like her. She's cool.
yeah. And so and the Juan 07 really knows a lot about that stuff. So he explains in detail how that works and how it is a tuning fork. Now, and it slipped my mind, damn, because I had another thing that just popped up in my head
Oh
about it.
crap! I just realized what time it is. Uh,
What time is it?
oh, it's 20 minutes till. I didn't realize we were gonna go more than an hour. That's okay. I'll keep going. I might
Oh
have to switch
yeah,
to my phone though, if that's
and
okay, because I
yeah,
gotta drive out to jujitsu.
okay. No, we gotta stop soon anyway because Whitehead
Okay.
is going live,
Oh,
and
okay. Cool, cool.
yeah, and but definitely come back because
Oh God, yeah.
seriously,
Heck
we
yeah.
got more digging to do here.
Yes,
Um,
definitely.
but this is so fascinating, isn't it? Because now
Yes.
we've got so many new ideas. And I can't wait to see that come to fruition. And also, if you need a translator with Giovanni, since
I
now I
will.
know about the subject, then no problem. I can translate it
Yes.
perfectly.
You're
And
you're gonna be the go-to person, so
yeah,
it's already decided.
yeah, oh man, I can talk forever about this stuff, right? Everybody in here, I see, and so many good, uh, you know, ideas in here. So, Mr. Fox, you need to contact and for his knowledge. And there was something else. Damn, it just slipped my mind again, and it was about uh, the frequency and the moving of the stones. I will get to it. I
Send
will,
me a
because
message. Yeah, you know where I am.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I enjoyed this so much,
Me too. Me
and
too.
well, and have a great time at jiu-jitsu.
Thank you.
And if you have to go now, then I can close off, so that's no problem.
Okay,
Uh,
cool. It takes like 25 minutes to get there, and it
yeah.
starts at 6. And so I'm
Okay,
gonna be
then.
like 6 minutes. Whatever. I'm a little bit higher up as far as rank, so it's okay if I'm a little bit late. But
But we can.
I don't want to like keep flexing that too much, so it's okay.
Okay,
But
so then I'm going to, well, remember, guys, tomorrow, 1 p.m., very, very important interview with Ophelia Kennedy, who's going to drop some great bombs about her mission that she is on. And everybody has got to see this, because seriously, this is really huge. 1 p.m. EST. So go check it out. Actually, while I'm at it, because I already had the link ready for that. So I'm going to share the link in the chat. Let me do that quickly. There you go. That is the link for tomorrow's stream. And Whitehead will be on at what is it? 9 p.m. Yes,
yeah.
EST. I'm at 3 o'clock almost. What?
Oh
2:41.
my gosh.
And follow Luke. I've got his stuff in the description, and I see my chat already have shared everything about him. Go
Thank
check out his
you.
channel and the music that he makes, because I put it in there as well. And yes, we bring him back. And thank you so much for coming by. And this was like awesome. We need to do a dig on this stuff.
I would love to. You know how to get a hold of me. I'm free usually in the usually about the
Absolutely.
time that we set up. I can probably make work maybe 30 minutes later on most days, but yeah, but like I said, I would love to come back on and do
For
this
stuff
again.
like this, I reschedule. I don't give it.
We
I
can
ser- Yeah, no, it's way too interesting, and we can do live digs as well, or even on your channel. I don't even care. I mean, I just love this stuff.
cool.
And thank you so much. And I wish you a great evening. And
Thank
everybody in the chat, thank you to all my mods, and Tron for stepping by, and Chris, and Whitehead, and everybody in there, and all my girls. I'll see you all at Whitehead's channel for the prayers. And oh, and Wednesday. I'm Wednesday on Pink Patriot podcast too. Have to say it.
Yeah,
Thank
heck
you
yeah.
all. Peace out.